Ready.
Call the meeting, the regular meeting of the City of Selma Planning Commission. 6:02 PM, March 25th, 2024. Teleconference phone number 301-715-8592. Webinar ID 883-1804-9306. When on the phone, if you wish to address the commission during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 to raise your hand and we will select you from the meeting queue. Press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Call to order. Flag salute led by Commissioner Juarez. Roll call.
Commissioner Corey? Here. Commissioner Franco?
Here.
Commissioner Juarez?
Here.
Vice Chair Singh?
Here.
Chair Salas?
Here.
And just for the record, Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Sandu is absent today.
Potential conflicts of interest. Any commissioner who has a potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. No conflict of interest. Oral communications. Notice to the public. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission regarding any item over which the commission has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issues raised will be referred to the chairperson for review. Members of the public shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to address the commission?
For all callers on the line, *9 to raise your virtual hand and *6 to unmute yourself. Chair Salas, I don't see nobody on the line.
Okay, no oral communication. The first item is a consent calendar. All items under consent calendar are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any commission member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and made part of the regular agenda. The commission can then approve the remainder of the consent calendar. The one item under consent calendar is a consideration and necessary action on the minutes of the February 26, 2024 meeting. Discussion or motion?
I make a motion to approve. I do second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Franco?
Yes.
Vice Chair Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Corey?
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez?
Yes.
Chair Salas?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is a submittal plan number 24-5, general plan amendment rezone site plan review for APN 390-030-71 and accompanied mitigation negative declaration.
Excuse me, Chair. Before staff begins, I just want to put for the record that about maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I met with Mr. Sahod and he gave me an overview of this project. Just want to put it on the record that I kind of already have an overview of this project. Yeah. Just complying with the Brown Act.
And do we need, for some reason on the agenda, at least that's in my packet, it doesn't show the number 2 item, or
Yeah.
is it?
I only
need-
got one page of the agenda. Also, we didn't get the second page. I just got the first page. It says public hearings, but then it doesn't have.
Yeah, there's no second item on the agenda.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Before you is what we refer to as the applicant refers to the Casa de Villa project. Uh, You can hide this, right? Project consists of a 3.29 acre property that would be both a 40 unit apartment complex and about a 3,000 square foot commercial project located on the south side of Nebraska, just east of the intersection with Thompson. The project proposes changing the existing zoning of the project from R17 to R3 as well as C2, as well as a general plan amendment from medium low to, sorry, from low density residential to medium low density residential. Phase one of the project consists of the 40 unit apartment complex with 83 parking stalls, about 36,000 square feet of landscape area, trash enclosures, and basically various items that are associated with the development of a multi-family complex. Phase two consists of the 3,000 square feet of commercial, along with, which could be a variety of commercial uses. I don't believe any are proposed at this time, as there are no tenants for that structure. So at a future time, staff would review a site plan review or subsequent entitlement for a future tenant at that time. It would include typical parking, landscaping, trash enclosures. I believe the fire access for the apartments is through that commercial property as well. Here is a map of the project location. As you can see, it lies between Thompson Avenue to the east and Mitchell Avenue to the west along Nebraska, directly south of the existing dog park, directly adjacent to the economy market and west of the existing apartment complex that has already been developed. Here's a project site plan. As you can see, you take entrance off of Nebraska for the various apartments. It includes appropriate turnarounds for emergency vehicles, as well as proposed trash enclosures, as well as the emergency access for fire that we talked about to the eastern portion of the project that would go and exit through the phase two of the commercial project. The emergency access would need to be present for all phases of the project. So from day one, there should be some sort of emergency access road or some sort of driveway access for fire, just in the event of an emergency. Here are just conceptual site plan or floor plans for the apartment complexes proposed by the applicant. First floor and second floor apartments. Project draft elevations
Thank you.
proposed by the applicant as well. Currently, we have no design standards or anything like that, but the elevations for the project are very aesthetically pleasing as proposed by the applicant. For CEQA, the applicant prepared through their consultant a mitigated negative declaration and initial study that identifies mitigation measures associated with the California Environmental Quality Act that need to be completed as part of the project, such as biological survey before grading occurs on site to make sure that no species have inhabited the site in between the time it was originally analyzed, as well as notification if there's any cultural features, bones, anything like that for the coroner's office to investigate. But that would just be a notification if they come across those during excavation. I believe that there's some requirements for further traffic analysis if there's certain uses proposed that were otherwise not analyzed in the environmental study, but those are all documented within the CEQA document provided by the applicant. Project history, this project was originally proposed as a tentative parcel map to split the property into two parcels as presented in the phasing plan, phase one and phase two. That was in 2022. And then subsequently, the rezone, general plan amendment, and CUP were all proposed, after that parcel map. So that's why we're here today. Kind of the project analysis overall, contained within the staff report provided to the commission. The proposal by the applicant and the subsequent land use changes would be within the ranges allowed, for density of such a use. You're currently allowed 13 to 24 units an acre for multiple family and high density residential. This project, would therefore be allowed to have anywhere from 36 to 78 units. So this is on the lower end of the range, but within the range allowed by the general plan. The commercial as well, allows specific uses. Again, at a future date, the applicant can maybe speak to who they've talked to about that tenant space. But, the C2 zone has a specific list of uses which would otherwise. The property would be served by Cal Water with the connection coming off of Nebraska. Sewer services would be, provided through SKF through the upgraded sewer line that was recently installed along Nebraska as part of a capital improvement project between the city and SKF. There are other projects, or other improvements to, sewer that need to be provided before this project could actually receive sewer service. There are other projects that'll be coming before the commission that have also been given this requirement. But these are projects that have been documented and that were provided during the development review process. The city would provide, stormwater, services through the existing stormwater drainage system located within proximity to the project. And as we've stated, frontage improvements would include typical storm drainage features, curb and gutter to help direct, stormwater to the appropriate inlets and drainage basin. The commercial phase of the project would again be under a separate application at a future date, which may not have to come before the planning commission. However, we have conditions of approval in there, as part of your, application package that would otherwise help dictate some of those future development requirements. As part of the, conditions of approval for the project, we also include, the, developer and applicant shall, help coordinate a couple of offsite items to help, with having a, how do I put this? Complete and clean infrastructure within the area, to serve the general public and promote motorist safety. One of those being, coordinate a 12-foot transition in street width to the, parcel to the east. As you can see along the frontage of the property, the frontage dedication would include, sidewalk, landscaping, and curb and gutter. All the right-of-way for Nebraska wasn't acquired when Economy Market was originally constructed, so there would have to be a transition back out to where their sidewalk and curb is. So we're just stating that the applicant needs to consider that transition as part of their final improvement plans. Another, consideration for the project would be, a 12-foot street dedication along the western side of the property. If you're familiar and you can see the area, the existing apartments was required to dedicate their full frontage and width improvements for Nebraska. So they're actually where this project would be consistent with. But there's a existing residential property between. What we're asking the applicant to do is help facilitate the dedication of that property to the west so that we don't have an instance of the existing infrastructure bulbing out or protruding, and then coming back to the frontage of the property for just a span of 30, 40 feet. In addition, some of his frontage improvements may necessitate some sort of discussion with that property owner anyway, such as the Rule 20 undergrounding of the overhead utilities, whether or not there has been discussions regarding that with the adjacent property owner. The applicant can fill in, staff and the commission, but from the standpoint of having, excuse me, complete infrastructure installed without any obstructions or any sort of obstacles to promote motorist safety, staff is proposing that this be done all at once, which would be reimbursable to the applicant if he facilitates it. But with that, and we're obviously available for questions, staff is recommending that the planning commission recommend approval of this project with conditions to the city council. So we're available for questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item. So during the public hearing, I will first ask for staff's comments and reports on the item being discussed. After staff's presentation, I will then open the hearing for public testimony. I will then close the public hearing, at which time no member of the public shall address the commission unless specifically asked by a member of the commission through the chair. The planning commission will then discuss the matter among themselves and take action on the item being considered. So we will now open the matter for public hearing. Anyone for or against the item may approach the podium, and you have 3 minutes.
I just want to make sure, So thanks, Jerome, that explaining about this project. And good evening, Chairperson and esteemed member of Planning Commission. My name is Nick Sahota, and my business address is 2511 Logan Street in Selma, California. I'm an applicant for this Casa de Villa apartment complex, spanning a total development area of 2.74 acres and featuring approximately 42 bedroom apartments, the 2-story units, design kind like a townhouses, which is having balconies, which if you could see the elevations, we do in the state of the art, these building. These complex, the both state of the art building with the 83 parking spaces, half of which are covered, and including 3 EV charging stations and 2 ADA spots. And alongside the open spaces, common area, recreational facility, such as a picnic and a play area for the people who live in there. This will be the gated community and granting access exclusively to the tenant and invited guest with a controlled gate access and surveillance camera monitored by the Selma PD to have 24 hours access to them. And I'd like to draw the commission attentions to the extensive efforts invested in this project over the past 4 years, ensuring compliance with the Selma planning regulations. This has including multiple revision of our site plan, numerous meeting with the planning commission, planning department, and the completion of a various studies, including air quality, biological assessment, archaeological survey, traffic study, and a final, the CEQA report. Mounting of these expenditures, excluding over $150,000 that I'm already into it. While I'm in agreement with the most of the term outlined in a condition of approval, you guys see this, there's a multiple pages of COA, is over 130 conditions on this project. I have some concern regarding the specific aspects on those COA. The first one is regarding, Jerome mentions about their improvements along on the west side, the property adjacent to mine, Rule 20 underground utilities. I'm amendable to be compliant with the requirements for the frontage of my property. And however, I'm unable to be compiled with the neighboring property owner to do the same for the adjacent property to the west, despite my attempts to be negotiate that they are not agree to sell or allow road widening. And I'm respectfully request that the city, considering a restriction on my COA, assume the sole responsibility of the frontage improvements. Given the challenges acquiring a neighboring land voluntarily, the city may needs to be explore alternative measures, such as eminent domains. And it's very, very hard. I done these kind of project, and you would have never built this project if they put it on me to go negotiate with the neighbors. And I already attempted. They're not going to do that. They're not going to sell it. They have houses. Try to buying a 12-feet frontage on the property is going to be challenged. I rather wanted a city to be buy that, and I will negotiate the cost of the improvements that putting in there. I could put it from my pocket, but buying it and put on that property, that's gonna be out of my range. I wouldn't do that. I'm happy to do Rule 20 frontage on my property, putting all the utility underground, not a problem at all. And second, I want to let the commissioner know that the condition of approval items 11 through 13 and 16 appearance to be a reference goals and a policy that have not been consistently enforced and are not explicitly outlined in the city ordinances, especially in the reference to the goal 3, policy 1.23 of Selma General Plan lacks clarity, has no master plan for the water, no master plan for the sewer, road improvements, and have been developed under the General Plan 2035. I questions why the responsibility falls solely on my project, especially considering the absence of such a requirement previously developments. I'm willing to comply it if deemed necessary, but a fairness. I want a fairness dictate that equal treatment to the all my project and the city project. And condition of approval, item number 51, considering impact fees, present significantly financial challenges on my project. The cumulative impact fees, including those in the law enforcement, city street, storm drainage, park and land improvement, amount of is just so much, these fees. In addition to the associated costs, pose the substantial barrier for feasibility of the project. I urge the commission to engage the planning director to be reviewing these fees, considering their impact of development visibility and the broadening the housing need in this community. And those fees are, Commissioner, I'm talking about that over almost like just the city impact fees and all that, it's about $800,000. That's not including the permit fees, that's not including reviewing fees, that's not including Cal Water charges, the SKF charges, and some other agency fees. I'm talking about for my evaluation of my project, is it gonna be about 5.5 million? And to paying these fees is over $1.5 million, is over 25% cost of my project. I never seen any city that had that much fees. And I just wanted them to be look into it, and I'm willing to work with them. But by putting this much fees on it, impact fees that much for the just loan for the recreational and park, $286,000. And for drainage fees, storm drainage, 149,000. Storm drainage pond is right next to it, within 100 feet. And that does not make any sense. That there's already drainage ponds. I've never seen a fill in my last 35 years that belong to the city. And I'm not sure. And also the underline, the outline in SKF, especially condition 1 through 3 regarding upgrades for the category E, F, and K. I question the necessity of inclusion in a category K. It does not directly affect our project. I had a discussion between the planning and SKF had a meeting last Wednesday on 20th. And they are agreed to excluding K, but they still put them in the K in there. I don't know why. And they are agreed to excluding K, and not we weren't on this time on this project. And in conclusion, I emphasize the critical need for housing in Selma as evidenced by declining the school attendance and its adverse effect on a local economy and its imperative that the city adopts a balanced approaches to development, ensuring the capability and neighboring jurisdictions while the minimizes the burdensome regulations and fees. I respectfully request that Commission's approval of my project, subject to be conservative dialogues with the city regarding a potential modification to the COA. Thank you for your consideration and attention on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment?
Good evening, Commissioners and staff,
Please
city
state your
staff.
name for the record.
My name is Sylvia Lopez, and I'm here to support, I'm in support of Casa de Villa, the project on Nebraska and Thompson.
Your address, please. I'm sorry. Your name and address.
Sylvia Lopez, 1357 South Birch Reedley. I am here in support of the Casa de Villa project for on Nebraska and Thompson to create more housing in Selma. As someone who was recently seeking housing within the city, I work here in Selma and now have seen this project struggle for about 4 years. I have seen firsthand the shortage in housing here in Selma. Um, I'm here today to stand with Nick and Central Valley Engineering to help change that, that we bring housing and new taxpayers to the city for the growth and enrichment of our city, for which I work with in a timely manner. So just wanted to come here and say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Your name and address for the record,
Yes,
please.
my name is Eduardo Camarillo, and I'm also here to support next project and yeah, for the housing in Selma, because
Your address, please.
address is it 1969 Gator Street, Selma, California, 936. And well, yeah, I'm here to support because we do need more options and apartments and more housing here in Selma, because I was living in a roommate where I got finally an apartment, and it was hard. I had to wait to find something available here in Selma, and I work here in Selma. I open a business here. That would be nice to have options and to have apartments and stuff more modern and stuff, not just like we like just the ones that are and just like fixed up, but something new, something more modern. Like you see Fresno, you see those nice apartment complexes that have a pool, have nice communities and stuff. That would be nice to have in Selma.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online?
For all callers on the line, star 9 to raise your virtual hand, star 6 to unmute yourself. Chair Salas, I don't see nobody on the line.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting and we'll bring the item back to the commission for discussion and questions.
I have a question, please. And I could have understood this wrong, but staff said the emergency access will be through the adjacent commercial parcel that you're partitioning. Will there be any recorded easement in case a future sale happen or something like that to ensure that stays in place? All right, and my other question, it was about Nick's comment. One of the condition of approval is to acquire the adjacent property, I guess, to continue the improvements right there for Rule 20. I'm assuming he has no power to force the neighbor to comply with that. So how would he comply with that condition of approval if the neighbor refuses to cooperate?
I can tell you in dealing with Rule 20, it's gonna be an issue because PG&E is not gonna allow us to put new poles up. So the likelihood that it's gonna be undergrounded from an existing pole further west through that property is highly likely. So in order to facilitate it, that's gonna be the application that likely goes through PG&E, that it gets approved with them not approving a new pole on Nick's property. So in regard to the requirement, if he's required to do Rule 20, the likelihood that he's gonna have to negotiate with both property owners is highly likely with regarding placement of future poles. So it just is, it's an issue of if he does it. Now, if he doesn't do it, that's a different issue and we can talk about options. All we said is he needs to help facilitate and the city would reimburse him if he acquired it. So in terms of the negotiation, if he wants to negotiate its acquisition and the city pays for it or whatever, that is fine. The issue being is it's gonna need to get done, I think, regardless of the fact. If someone wants to discuss what PG&E is gonna require, then they should be sitting in my chair, not me, because no one knows what PG&E is actually gonna require. But in my experience, PG&E will not allow an additional pole to be constructed so that they have to maintain it. It's either gonna be from an existing pole or relocation of an existing pole, but it's not gonna be on his frontage. So it's either gonna be on that property's frontage, but with regard to the development in the area, there needs to be some semblance of transition or elimination of any sort of hazard. And what you would have, you guys,
No, I mean, I understand that, but I'm trying to figure out
how it gets
like,
facilitated.
how
I
it gets
mean, this is
facilitated
not
if the
an
neighbor does not want to help.
This is
And
not
there's
an
no
un-
recorded easement for utilities, so what does he do?
Right, and this is, again, this is not an uncommon requirement for development projects to have to go out and facilitate acquisition of land with regard to installation of infrastructure. This is not an uncommon requirement. The issue becomes from, if I'm understanding the commissioner's question, in the event that they don't sell, how do we get it done?
Right.
And in that case, the city can step in if it's necessary to facilitate eminent domain. I
Okay.
don't know if the city council is willing to do that, and that's generally why developers are tasked with doing that requirement. However, that can be a discussion point with the city council. Now, if that's a recommendation of the planning commission to advise on this specific issue, we'll take it to them and have a further discussion on the matter.
Right.
However, as I'll point out, it is not uncommon to require acquisition of right-of-way from properties for installation of infrastructure in other cities.
Yeah, I would just, my point is, I would hate to see this project being stalled or put on hold, like, okay, you cannot develop because of a stubborn neighbor who's afraid of a change. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not trying to insult anybody here. I don't know if the neighbor is cooperating or not. But it gets to a point where, okay, we will tell the applicant, go negotiate with the neighbor, let's figure it out. And if that neighbor says, I want nothing to do with this because I not in favor of seeing an apartment building next door to mine. I don't want to live between two apartment buildings. And so then it becomes where, what do we do next is my question, because definitely seeing it developed is better than seeing that lot being empty and, trash getting dumped there and everything else. So, but I do know that neighbors can be difficult sometimes when they feel that they can twist someone's arm, so.
Absolutely. I've had personal experience of negotiating Rule 20 acquisition
Yeah.
for this type of issue.
Right.
And yeah, it's not easy, but if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? Everybody would be a developer if it was easy.
Okay. So,
But what would be like a reasonable time for him to wait? Because it can get extended a year,
No,
2
I
years,
understand.
and then his project
Absolutely, and I
stalls
think-
because we don't have a time limit set on it.
Right, and I think that's part of the discussion, right, is in terms of at what point and what needs to be shown as being done to try and acquire it, right? Are there formal letters sent? Have there been documentation of it trying to be acquired? And then he's exhausted all his avenues in terms of making an offer, sending an appraisal, offering a counter offer, whatever. As long as there's some documentation that staff can rely upon that shows, hey, it hasn't been done, we can step in and try and facilitate it. I mean, the city does have a Rule 20 district down in Nebraska that we may facilitate the Rule 20 on our end and expect reimbursement from the applicant on that. And at that time, we would have to acquire the right of way. So there are options available. It's just in terms of timing, does the developer want to rely on us or do they want to rely on their own time frame? Because we generally move a lot slower than developers want us to. So there's only so much we can do on their behalf because we have specific guidelines and laws that we have to abide by before we can acquire it. Whereas a developer, they have different requirements that
Right.
don't necessitate, the hoops that we have to jump through. So from a matter of practice,
Right.
it's considerably easier, I'm gonna go like this, easier for the developer to acquire the right of way than the city.
And I'm sure as a developer, from a developer point of view, they want to see their project moving forward as fast as possible. But if he exhausts every resource and we're putting this in his condition of approval, I'm trying to ask what would be the alternative to move forward once he brings proof to the city that he's done everything he could and hit a dead end. What would be next? So just so we can have something else instead of this having already to come back to us saying, oh, well, the condition of approval was for him to acquire that and now he can't. What do we do next? I'm thinking we could address it tonight and make sure he understands his plan of action, what happens first, what happens next, and what would be a solution. Thank you. That's it.
In regards to SKF, does he have documentation saying letter K that you were
So,
talking about?
so I have, and staff did attend a meeting last week with SKF and the applicant, and the conditions reflect the understanding staff has regarding the requirements. We understand Clarkson Lift Station is a requirement, but it's already under construction. It's already being built by the city. The condition, I think, says that it needs to be completed before issuance of a building permit, right? And so we understand that the applicant's not gonna go out and build it, but what we're setting is timeframes of when they can acquire a building permit, so there's a reasonable expectation by all parties of when they're allowed to pull a building permit, right? The other ones, with regard to the Sunset Lift Station, that one's on a first come, first serve basis for capacity. And as we go along, if there's other projects that come online, the capacity is gonna fluctuate, right? So there is a timing in there that will, at the time when they submit, if there's no capacity remaining in that lift station for whatever reason, that station needs to be upgraded as well before they can acquire a building permit. Lastly, with regard to the Sheridan line, that line is a critical path for not only this project, but another project that will be coming to the Planning Commission next month. That it's a condition on both projects that that line be uh, uh, upgraded to accommodate additional capacity because it's at capacity currently. Both projects would receive some form of reimbursement in the form of impact fee credits for upsizing the line, but that's how development goes sometimes with regard to having to make upgrades downstream to accommodate your project, right? So that one, the applicant is firmly within his right to sit and wait for it to be upgraded if he's had discussions with the other developer and they're already planning on doing it. So then his impact fees would go to pay back the other applicant for upgrading that line, right? So it mitigates his fair share impact through the payment of impact fees, which is what impact fees are meant to do, right? They are a form of mitigation for the impacts that any project has on the existing infrastructure. So the question about what the fees are, they're a mitigation, they're almost a mitigation or a condition for your incremental impact on city facilities. That's what those fees are meant to pay for. If the applicant wanted to not have a storm drain impact fee, he could have a basin on his site, but he pays the impact fee so that he doesn't have a basin on his site, that it maintains and upgrades infrastructure to accommodate downstream improvements. That's what those fees are meant to do as development occurs, right? With regard to the specific conditions that are general plan policies, the project is proposing a general plan amendment and rezone, and it requires consistency from a legal standpoint to be consistent with all those policies or policies specific to development, right? So that's why those are in there. Some projects may not require, like a simple building permit typically doesn't require any sort of consistency finding, but because this project is requesting a change, you have to make that legislative consistency finding. With regard to how they've been administered over time, I can only speak to the last year, right? But these are the type of things that should have been required, right? And you should always have projects that have general plan consistency because those policies were designed and thought up and vetted and went to various hearings and workshops and stakeholder meetings and all of these things that's what the vision of the city was supposed to be. And that's why those requirements are there. So the fact that they weren't carried with some projects is a disservice to all the people that participated in that process. And that's why they're included. Apart from that, I think I've covered most of the concerns that were brought up. But we're obviously here for any other questions as well.
I have a question. As you mentioned about the fee, so that fee we are charging right way, or like how the plan is for the fee?
So the development impact fee program was developed in 2015 or 16 and identifies projects that are directly related to growth in the city. So those impact fees only go to pay for growth inducing projects such as upsizing sewer lines, upsizing storm drain lines, building new basins, things like that that are required of new development so that we don't have to require someone to go out and acquire a site for a regional basin and dig it out for their project, right? We can accommodate some projects under existing basins, some projects we do have to acquire land and we collect impact fees and that money is used to go out and acquire and excavate and develop a new storm drain basin, right? So these fees are directly developed to accommodate new growth incrementally so that we don't have to require significantly larger improvements for their project. We've discussed with the applicant if the fees need to be funded in a specific manner over a time period, we're amenable to that. We're flexible to allowing them to maybe enter into a development agreement with the city with a schedule of when payments are due. And if not, there's got to be a method for us to come back and collect them. In addition, they would only pay fees for whatever phase that they're doing. So if they only pulled permits for 4 buildings and then they're gonna, build them in sections, they would pay the first set of impact fees with the buildings that they're building and then with the rest of the project. They're not due day one when they submit it, and they're not due until the certificate of occupancy is gonna be issued per state law. Additionally, the commercial project wouldn't pay their impact fees until that project's developed. So they're apart and separate, and impact fees for the commercial development aren't really included in our conditions of approval because we don't have a proposed use on that site yet. So, from where we sit, the impact fee program is in the development world, it's one of the more definitive ways to mitigate your impacts, and they're known before you submit the application generally, so you can account for those fees. Those fees are available on our website. They've been available from city staff, and they go generally to the city council to adjust with inflation annually. And I don't think we've adjusted them for inflation since 2020. So in reality, the fees are somewhat lower than maybe what they should be, but they accommodate what the impacts of the project would otherwise be in an incremental fashion so that they don't have to go out and construct significant improvements.
Thank you.
Was this noticed to all the neighboring? The reason I ask is because when it came before us or the council for the division, we had a lot of people who were very upset at the time about the prospect of having apartments put right next to a residential area. So did you receive any input from any of the neighbors?
No, I mean, as a matter of practice and as required by state law, it was sent out to all the property owners within 300 feet of the property, so.
Anybody have any further questions? Yes, sir.
The planner's standpoint of view on that, definitely this project, I'm not gonna go, I already talked to the neighbors. There's no way, he's not gonna agree. So if the city wanna buy it, I'll pay for it. And to putting on the Rule 20, I think I'm working already with the guy who do these Rule 20s and Rule 16s, to draw those up for PG&E. It can be done. There's a multiple site in Selma, the Nebraska Avenue, all the way to the Highland is already, it's on overhead. And there's a multiple site in a town overhead. And if you try to saying this, these are all the neighbors out there. How much I gonna be responsible for neighboring? This is not, I think it's this condition
Nick,
doesn't making sense.
I believe staff said if PG&E will approve it this way, they're
Yeah.
not gonna object, so it's
Perfect. If
totally
if they
fine.
could put them in this writing and this conditions like that, I would be happy to, if they could rename it like that. I don't want to come back. It's directly, I know if you read it, you have to do it. It says mandatory in there. If you could change it, wording, yes. The way that I read it, maybe I don't. Maybe you guys could look into it. And also that regarding the, you know, the fees are,
We
I
can't
would-
change the fees, Nick.
I know, but I've been developing here for a lot, and all the cities are charging by
We-
the acres of the
We-
storm
We
drainage
don't
fees.
give discounts. We don't give, I mean, it's just, those are what the fees are.
If
Yeah.
you, Nick, if you want to talk about fee changes and stuff, you have to go to council. They're the
I
only
agree.
ones- They're the
I
only ones
agree.
that can do it. We're
Yeah.
sympathetic, but our hands are tied.
No,
We
I
can't do it.
totally get it. I just want to bring it up to you, my
No,
perspective.
we
Compared to the
understand.
other cities, these impact fees, everybody charged by the acres of that how much land, if I got a 2.74 acres that developing, the fee should be charged by the acres. And I don't know how they come up with the calculation, 149,000. I've been asking for it, explain me, I never had explained by no, not by the city engineer. I want to know that. Is it their capacity is not enough out there? The one within 100 feet, there's a ponding basin out there, never filled? What, does the engineer calculate the capacity on the basin? I know that there's enough capacity out there. We could put them in. Why I win treated like this, all I just want to tell you guys. I'll go to
I
council.
don't think they charge whether there's capacity or not. I believe they charge for, because you're adding so much usage to that
Yeah,
basin.
Because you're
So
gonna
is
use
other
it.
developers that are gonna be using it, at a certain point, it will become at capacity and they have to put a new one. And that's why they call them an impact fee. But if you need an explanation of how it's calculated, I personally, I would say send something in writing to staff so they can give it to the engineer and put it on record for the council to give you an explanation when this project goes to council, because all what they ask us to do here is whether approve or decline the
Absolutely.
rezone.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's why I'm saying it. I wanted to have discussion on these regarding these item. I want if commissioner could add those item, have them further discussion with the city, I would love to do that. And otherwise, I don't think that this project's gonna go by those fees, how much the fees to develop this, impossible to do that. And like, as I said, neighboring cities have about 6%, and this is calculating to be a lot. And I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm asking for it, explanation on these. And I went doing a lot of projects here, there. I never seen that, calculating for these apartment I just done in Kingsburg. And those are 50 units and their storm drainage fees is like, they're $3,000. I just did 178 units. I never seen it. How did they calculate it? I understand. There's a capacity. I want to know why we can't use that. I'm the one who developing now. If I could use now, why would I rely on the future people? I don't get that. Whoever come, first serve, right? Always. And if their project is not even a planning commission, why we need to be considerate? That's always the towns are never gonna get developed like that. So I would really want to develop this apartment. This is my dream project. I really want to do it. But with these kind of things, I will go to the council members and I'm gonna tell the same thing, that I want you guys to look into it or have a meeting with me to explain me this. That how did they calculating these fees? That's all. There's only few fees that I'm asking for it.
So
Those
do
are
you-
almost a
do you
half million.
prefer that we table this until you have further discussion with staff? Or maybe it's a question for staff. How do we move forward? I don't think anybody wanna, well, I don't know, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think it's a great project. We can see that, but if staff and the applicant are not agreeing on fees, I don't think the planning commission can do anything, but
Me-
how do we?
I mean, from a staff point of view, and as the commission is pointing out, the fees are not adopted by staff. They're not adopted by planning commission. They're adopted with a report justifying what the impacts are related to projected development in the general plan. And then they're allocated on a per unit, per square footage basis of the various types of usage. According to the impact fee schedule, that was adopted, storm drainage fees for multifamily are about $3,600 a unit. That information has been available since 2021, since when they were last updated in 2015. So as a matter of practice, these are not new fees. These fees have been on the books for a significant amount of time. Additionally, as the commission pointed out, and I think what's being missed is you can't develop in a vacuum. You have to look at what impacts are being created and what needs to be accommodated, right? If other people hadn't put in infrastructure to serve this project, there would be no infrastructure to serve this project. And therefore, they would have to put it all in by themselves, depending on the location of where they're at. Future projects are the same way, depending on their location, and they would pay the similar impact fees to construct future growth inducing infrastructure, right? And so from a matter of practice, if we said, okay, all development doesn't have to pay any impact fees, what does the city have in order to accommodate future growth, except requiring development to build all of it? There's one way or the other. You could do it incrementally and have people, contribute their fair share portion of infrastructure improvements, or you can have them construct them all on their own, one or the other. And that's why impact fees are very common at all cities for mitigating impacts. It's very rarely you have an impact. I mean, I've seen it where I've had projects that have had to construct 2 traffic signals as part of their project and acquired 9 sections of right of way as in order to do that. And they would limit the number of units that could be constructed before you even had the plans approved just for the traffic signal. So it's not uncommon to require the acquisition of right of way as part of a project. And obviously, if the city's requiring it and they're involved, as we've talked about, there needs to be some semblance of proof that the developer has gone through a process to try and acquire that right of way. But with regard to impact fees, if we had to construct, I don't know, expansion of the wastewater treatment plant, you'd have to go through permitting with Regional Water Quality Control Board. You'd have to do all these other things, or you could pay a fee to SKF and have them do it. One or the other. It's the same thing with storm drain. We don't have a water impact fee. There's connection fees you pay to Cal Water because they are outside of our impact fee program. So the city, as a matter of practice, does not control the water utility in the city. So the fees that they charge are outside of our control for the most part, right? And it's same with SKF fees because they are a separate entity. With regard to the infrastructure that we're controlling, we're responsible for, which are the sewer lines, storm drain, roads, and then city facilities, parks, city hall, fire, police, right? Growth induces impacts, and there needs to be some semblance of mitigating the impacts generated by your projects, and that's how the city has decided to do it, is through impact.
So in order to approve this, he needs to agree with all of the conditions that you've put
I
in.
mean, once the project is approved by city council, we have an acknowledgement form that they understand the conditions, but if city council, with the recommendation of the planning commission, adopts the conditions as presented, the conditions are the conditions. There doesn't have to be an agreement with the applicant per se. We like to meet with the applicant to discuss the conditions to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to why they're being required. We've met with the applicant, I think, on multiple occasions to discuss the conditions of approval to try to come to some sort of understanding and agreement, because we want the project to move forward. I don't think anybody on staff doesn't want to see it move forward because it's a good project in an infill area that, as commission has talked about, needs to be filled in due to dumping and other unsightly items. B, this type of project meets the requirements of our housing element under the general plan. So as a matter of policy, it's consistent with the type of housing we would need to meet various goals in our housing element. So I don't think from a staff standpoint, there's any disagreement that this is a great project that checks a lot of boxes for the city. However, we still have to mitigate impacts to projects that are presented to us, depending on their location in the city. We have projects that can't go in until the Amberwood sewer trunk line's in, right? We have projects that can't go in until the Dinuba sewer trunk line is in, right? We have projects on the west side of town that can't go until the Rose Avenue sewer line is upgraded and the lift station's upgraded. This is not an uncommon thing in the city due to lack of collection of proper mitigation fees or lack of, foresight to upgrade specific facilities as part of development projects. So what I would say is the impact fee program, again, is a way for the city to mitigate impacts to try and accommodate growth. And that's what they're meant for. And waiving them would simply be looking at this in a vacuum, like it has no impacts whatsoever.
So if we want to recommend approval today and we want to leave a way for the applicant to negotiate those fees with city council instead of making it like cut and dry, can we make a recommendation to approve this project and have the applicant negotiate with city council his impact fees?
I mean, you can suggest that as a recommendation. Staff wouldn't agree, and we would express exactly the conversation we have. So
Right.
the planning commission's recommendation that we would carry forward, absolutely. But I just want commission not to be surprised if staff doesn't agree.
Oh, no,
No,
I
we
get
underst-
it. And I understand why you're
Okay.
putting those fees, but I'm just saying if the applicant feels that he needs further discussions or he needs a small discount or something.
Yeah, and
then-
as I've stated, Commissioner, we've stated to the applicant that if he wants to pay the fees over time and enter into an agreement with the city to pay the fees over time, we're amenable to that. We've had discussions with that with multiple other applicants, and they've been favorable to that suggestion because they understand, and I think staff understands too. Financing for projects is tough, especially in the current market with interest rates, construction costs are constantly rising.
Right.
Being able to find a lender to finance your project, if you have a large upfront cost, it becomes inherently difficult to get financing. We understand that. And that's
Okay.
why we've offered that if they want to enter an agreement to pay the fees over time, we're amenable to that because we understand what type of constraints they could be under with trying to get financing from day one for the whole thing. That being said, the impact fees are the impact fees, as we've stated. The impacts of the project on future growth of the city and their impacts to lines and the need to upgrade lines in the future to accommodate future projects. If other projects hadn't paid impact fees, we wouldn't have been able to pay for the Nebraska line,
Correct.
right? I mean, and that runs right through the front end of the project. So that's a prime example of impact fees benefiting a project that has not yet been developed.
Well, it's the same when we ask developers to pay their fair share toward the traffic light, because otherwise three sides, three sides would develop and they won't have to pay anything. And then the fourth the fourth person on that intersection comes to develop and then they have to put the whole fee for that traffic light, which would make it unfair. So I guess from our point of view, Nick, I guess
No,
we're,
I totally get impact
we're in favor
fees.
of this
I-
project, but
Yeah, I totally get impact fees. We just gotta be competitive. I'll talk
Well,
to the council members with the
again, you're-
others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Selma. We're not Kingston.
No,
Yeah.
I agreed. And also, Jerome said, if I have my own ponding basins, then I don't have to pay for the storm drainage. Is that correct? That's what you said?
correct.
So I might do it on my own. So I still have 70, 80 units I could develop. So maybe I could maybe figure it out with the,
Yeah, well,
putting
I guess
on-site.
you do the math. What would
Yeah.
be cheaper for you is
But-
pay all the.
But I'm just
impact
saying it's
fees or
just
put your
wasting the
own-
land out there if you have a ponding basins and.
But, yeah, and I mean, the whole point of it is if you're gonna maintain your own basin, you're not creating impacts on the city, because we wouldn't accept a basin on private property, right?
Right.
We have regional basins to accommodate stormwater flows, and the impact fee pays to cover that and the acquisition of new basins to accommodate new stormwater runoff from new projects. I agree. I don't believe it's a good use of land to have a stormwater basin on his own property because it limits the ability of him to develop, but that's why the impact fee's there.
Nick, so the question is, it seems like the commission is ready to move forward with this, or as, like Ramda said, we could table if you want more time to fine tune it, but I think we're ready to move forward.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I totally get it. Jerome explained me this before, so those are my concerns. Like I said, the Rule 20, I can't if I'm not gonna do it. I've done it before, many projects. It's never feasible. I won't able to turn somebody to do that, to sell the property. There's no way. I already asked for it. They're never gonna do it. There's porches at the front. They use it. Impossible to do it. And I'll work with the PG&E. If you could wording like that, I'll work with the PG&E on that. And I'd be happy to do that. And then, yeah, once we get to the council members, I will have more data and print it out, and I'll bring it to them to show them that if they wanted to discuss with it. I wouldn't here in this town more than 18 years. And I don't know why is every project is a difference. I'll bring the proof to the councils. I show them why is it not consistent all the time, all the fees. Why? If I'm been fair, no problem. If everybody charging the same fees, I write on in my signature on a white piece of paper, clear. But I want to be fairness, treated me as a fair. That's all I'm just trying to bringing up to me. And I done those apartments and I never seen these fees. Suddenly start last year. I'm just so surprised at all these different stuff, impact fees. And maybe we never forced it. So it's just different and I don't know. I mean, if people's not gonna develop like these 25%, that's not all I'm saying it. It's about 6% average. You could Google it. Any city impact fees, the permit fees, about 6%. And this does not work out. And I'm building an apartment. I'm spending a lot of money on there. Then plus Cal Water, I don't know what they're gonna charge me. SKF charging me tons of money. This is impossible to build any project in Selma. If like that, at Kingsburg, I show you, I have a proof right here. I gave it to them. And over 50 units apartment, everything, all the fees, $500,000, 500 something, 23, something like that, everything. Why is it Selma comes up to here that we need to be more housing? You guys always say that we need more housing. As being as a board of trustee at the school, we lost 600 kids within the last 3 to 4 years because there's no houses. People comes there, they can buy the houses. We need to figure it out. I don't know where I'm just being as a resident. I love this town. That's why I'm sharing with you. If you don't want to hear it, I'm fine with it.
And
So
I
this is
think
my town.
if I can make a comment, I think that's something that you would take up with council because
Absolutely.
if what you're saying is correct, and he does make a good point, if we're not competitive to towns nearby, this is why they're passing us up on building more homes too. So housing needs to come to Selma and we need to maybe approach that with council to make
Yeah.
sure that we're still
That would
competitive.
be a decision that council would have to do.
Yep.
If I may, staff has no problem if there's a recommendation from the commission to adjust condition 95, which specifically refers to the Rule 20, that says that instead of additional right-of-way will have to be required, if it says something along the lines that says additional right-of-way may be required. The event that the design that Mr. Sahota gets with PG&E doesn't require additional right-of-way, I have no problem with that. I'm just saying from a matter of practice, I haven't seen it done that way. So if Mr. Sahota can get it done without the need for the acquisition of right-of-way from the adjacent property owner, we can reword that accordingly. The other thing I would say is with regard to the fact that housing hasn't been built, as we've heard and as been discussed tonight, the need for infrastructure in the city was the choke point for a lot of development in town. That being said, the city went out on a limb and acquired financing for some of that infrastructure to the tune of $7.2 million for sewer, right? And the payment of impact fees not only will help pay back that bond, but it also will help fund future facilities for future projects. So the idea that it's just fees that are holding things up is not the case. In fact, it's our own, oversight of what infrastructure needed to be built to serve projects, I think was more of the factor in terms of why housing hasn't been built. We've had the Amberwood specific plan approved since 2015. Not a house has been built out there. Why? There's no sewer. So what did we do? We put sewer out there and my phone is ringing off the hook. Right? We have other projects that are required to install or connect to sewer along Dinuba.
Mhm.
It's not stopped. When people hear that we're looking at doing future financing for Dinuba, doesn't stop people from submitting projects on Dinuba because they know what the choke point is, and it's sewer.
Right.
And so the idea that it's just the impact fees, I think, is a lost leader in this discussion. Is the oversight on maintenance and construction of infrastructure to support development, which are funded through payment of impact fees, right? Or capital improvement projects, which are partially funded through impact fees or allocation from the general fund. Or impact fees are used to leverage grant money to fund infrastructure. So again, the fees are the fees, and they were developed through using a methodology that accommodates future growth. But to simply say that the fees are the only reason development's not occurring in town would be misleading because there are significant other factors that play to that as well. Interest rates, COVID, supply chains, construction costs outside of impact fees, and infrastructure are all various issues that play into the market of development. But staff is only a small portion of that equation. And what we're trying to do is discuss with applicants as early as possible what their development requirements are. As I've stated, I don't think that there's been any discussions of when draft conditions are done, sending them to the applicant before they get put on an agenda to make sure we're on the same page to see if there are items that can be negotiated, items that can be phased in a certain manner to try and accommodate their needs for financing or their phasing plan or how they propose to construct it, right? I've had incidences where, people want to leave sidewalks out of their project. Well, we can have that discussion, but it becomes an ADA issue, right? And in those cases, if they propose to construct their homes outward or adjacent to existing sidewalks, then there wouldn't be an ADA issue necessarily, but they would have to construct that subdivision in a specific manner, right? You couldn't construct in the furthest corner of the subdivision and not put in a sidewalk for an applicant. You would have to connect the path of travel to the existing sidewalk to create a path of travel to be compliant with ADA, right? So we're always open to the discussions, but we want to have those discussions as early as possible. We're not always going to agree because we have different purposes, right? Staff has a purpose of upholding the rules and policies of the city, and the developer has a project that they want to construct within the parameters that they're allowed to operate within. They're not always going to align because they're two separate ideals altogether. So what we're here to do is to review the project, analyze it accordingly, and present a viable solution to comply with city standards, city codes, city regulations, city policies, to offset any impacts the project creates to the existing infrastructure of the city, and try and work with the applicant to get it done.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Now I'm ready to make.
Well, I would like to make a motion to recommend to City Council approval of submittal number 24-5 with adjusting the verbiage for Rule 20, that if the applicant was able to work it out with PG&E, that it becomes, it's basically may or not must acquire.
Right. Well, may have to, additional right-of-way may have to be acquired from the property to the
Right,
west.
if required by PG&E. So if PG&E approves it with overhead, and not needing the underground, then that's fine, or the additional requirements.
Just
Cor-
that-
just correct.
Just that one exception.
Yeah, the one exception.
Rest of the conditions, are okay with that?
They're not new.
But I'll discuss it.
City Council.
We heard our deputy, Jerome, Mr. Jerome. So we heard you. So what's the both concerns are genuine. So do you think as Mr. Jerome said, they it has right now I didn't feel like there is a harmony in both parties, So do you need time to go for?
No, you guys said that, you guys are to be go with the recommendations and, with the amendment, and I gone through a lot of planning commissions on different cities. They changes all the times. It's up to them, but I don't know, you guys rule, I'm not into it. I'm not in my business. I'm a businessman and I'm a resident of Selma. It's up to you guys, how you guys want it. If I seen it, people, the other planning commissions in the different cities, they changes all the times, different projects, whatever they feel like it, and that's up to the council members to approve it or not. So, if you guys are going only with the one item for that, I'm very happy with that. Rest of them, if you guys are going the way that, city written with the policies, and I will discuss further down later on with the council, and then we go, because it's all, like, once again, I want to build this project. I want to work with the city. I'm not here to against anybody. Trust me, I've been open my business here to do the business. I want a friendly business here, but workable, fairness. I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted a fairness with me, and that's all I wanted. If it's these fees not charge other people, I bring it in later on, And I don't want to see that consequences, you know? So if be fair with me and due diligence, and these fees are, these what it is, and I be 100% paying for it. But I feel like it's not.
Honestly, we're trying to recommend what's within our power to change. Since we
Absolutely.
cannot change the fees, we cannot
No,
recommend
that's
that
that's
they
fine.
change the
That's what I
fees.
said.
Yeah.
I wanted open discussion with the
Right.
with the planner. If Jerome's has been really nice, he's been discussing with me multiple meeting, no doubt. But is there's a lot of conditions on it. I felt like I went dragged on with bombardment on conditions. I never seen in my life these many conditions that Selma put it on my project. That's me. That's me. I might be wrong. I've done it in many projects. I have a 25 conditions in 178 units in Madeira. I could show you guys that. And I never seen these many conditions comes to bombardment on every single angle. You can have reflected color, you can have this. It's not in city ordinances. Oh yeah, we're gonna do in a future general plan. Why I'm the first one? And I never seen these kind of things that these are the common thing. I'm trying to developing these houses like a townhouses, bringing the city nice. I did a duplex. You know how many comments I got? So many. Fire department gave me number one. I never heard from city that, hey, you guys did a good job. And I'm gonna try to be bringing these houses, gated community, no crime, no nothing. But I get always bombarded, seems like it. And I don't know why. I have no idea. But I want to develop this project once again with the minimum requirements by the government, by the city, not the maximize. Do not put me maximize, please. Nobody gonna do this in city. If you guys put it on a maximize, all the, condition restriction on me, everything 100%. And you say, you know what, that's what I'm gonna do to you. And that's what I felt. I'm sorry.
I understand you want minimum intervention from the city, but we have to have some intervention because
Absolutely.
we don't want a project that's going to fall apart down the line too. So
Absolutely.
there are
I'm
rules for, not just for you, but for the safety and of the whole community.
absolutely, we are engineering
So,
firm. We design all
no,
that stuff with
and
the
I
safety and
understand.
with a nice building. Yeah.
And
if the city
honestly, if you
says-
find
sorry.
there are conditions that are unjust or not part of our code or that are
Yes.
being, please bring them forward to staff. I don't think staff want to add from what they said. They don't want to make it harder on you to build it. If they're recommending it, it's probably part of
You know,
the code and what's required and safety.
there are
But-
a lot of conditions, but so you circle number 5 and you tell them, explain this
ask
to
if-
me.
I did explain them, but still's in there, like I said, item 11 through 13, 16. Those are like, okay, all right. Well, I never seen it, just recently project built hair clinics. I could see their bent pipe, I could see their AC. They're saying that if you're gonna put an AC on the roof, we want you to put a parapet wall. These kind of conditions that I wanna see in the plan, I wanna see in the city ordinances, say specifically that, hey, Nick, sir, this. Don't just give me the overview per general plan, say that 1.23 policy in the future general plan to 2035. It says that beautification on it. Don't put me on me. If you show me other project have same conditions, yes.
A lot of these things are being updated even as we speak. The council is making these changes current. So maybe 2 years ago, that wasn't the case, but the city is trying to update the general plans and zoning. They're doing all of those updates. So I think you're getting caught right in the middle of all these changes and I understand where it's frustrating for you, but the city is making changes to modernize our city also.
Okay, that's fine. I hope you are right, but I see that if you want to see a development in this city, we gotta be a fairness with the people who developer. That's a lot of money to spending out there. And they're gonna make a money out of them. That's a hard these days. And yeah, I understand, but you gotta be competitive with the other city. That's all I'm asking, but that's up to the council's members and
Yes,
you
yes.
guys too. We are all residents too. I'm a resident. We want to be just competitive. All I just saying it, Mandeep, thanks for that. Your questions, yeah. No, I do want to move forward on it. I want to get this, but it has to be workable with the city staff.
I was on doubt because, like, our deputy city manager,
Yeah.
Mr. Jerome, he did a lot of work, and as you mentioned, you have gone through multiple meetings with the staff. So, in the beginning, you mentioned if with these many conditions, it's hard for you to move forward. So I was I wanted to make sure if
So I just want to bring it to you guys' attentions that look into it. You guys as a commissioner, look into it and see at other city, what does they do? I'm pretty sure Ramses, she's in real estate and she's seen all those. And I done many projects. I just wanted this city to be grow. I'm just saying it, not to the backslash on.
definitely, we all want the city must grow,
That's it.
but we have to consider everything. So,
Yeah.
mm,
All right, thank
thank
you.
you.
Could you finish the
Yes,
motion?
please.
I made a motion,
Uh,
so we need a second.
Mr.
Oh.
Jerome wants to say something.
A couple items. Obviously, staff appreciates the applicant's concern advocating for their project in regard to the development requirements and understanding that having conditions of approval, some of them are simply restatement of what's already required in some instances. Some are bringing policies for consistency purposes with the general plan. With regard to screening mechanical equipment on the roof, we went through the objective design guide workshop, and I can tell you that that is proposed in the multifamily objective design guidelines. In addition, we have general plan policies that require design features, for appearance and various other things. So in terms of having certain features color the same color as the building, we don't view as like an absorbent or unreasonable request. It's just a consideration as part of the project. So as much as as Nick has said, we've worked, with them to review the conditions. At some point, the city has to view the project as being that if in the event the developer leaves and someone picks it up, what are our assurances it's going to be built the same way with the same type of care? I appreciate that Nick is involved in the community. He's on various other, social groups, community boards, school boards, all of those items. But in the event that he isn't the developer for whatever reason, who's going to uphold the standards of the project? What are we going to fall back on that the project is built to the standards that we expect in Selma? And the conditions of approval and the requirements within those conditions, coupled with the mitigation measures, coupled with the development impact fees, will ensure the project upholds the standards expected by the policymakers that came before us, the policymakers that are currently here, and the staff that's here. What I will personally guarantee is you will see similar requirements on all projects that come before you as long that I'm here.
Thank you.
We have a motion. We have a motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Commissioner Corey,
Yes.
Commissioner Franco,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Singh,
I abstain.
Chair Salas.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no further, oh. No, they don't do it anymore. No further business for the commission?
A couple department updates. We have a workshop with city council to discuss the zoning code update, which came before the planning commission. I think it was in December. I mean, in terms of scheduling 5 council members for a workshop on an off week, we ended up on the same day that they have a joint meeting with SKF. So that just tells you what the scheduling crunch was. So our hope is tomorrow's workshop goes relatively smoothly or as smoothly as expected. But our plan is hopefully to have the first reading of it at probably the second meeting in April. With the first reading, second meeting in April, second meeting, first meeting in May, with the new zoning code going into effect beginning of June. That's been a heavy lift by the department. We've actually had to make numerous changes. One of the recommended changes includes a home occupation, major and minor home occupation. As you know, some people run businesses out of their homes. State law has allowed certain businesses to have employees. I think that's more for food preparation. But in other communities, they've had expansion of business licenses to allow a singular employee as well as customers to maybe show up on an appointment only basis. And that's what staff has added, and I wanted to make the planning commission aware of that. Because there have been numerous instances of folks coming in where we feel that their home business should be considered as a regular home business and not have significant requirements, because really all they're doing is they're operating out of a room of their house. They're not having anybody coming and going. So the compatibility with the neighborhood, nobody would be none the wiser if they didn't know that there was a business being run out of that home. So that's one change that I think we've added since it was brought before the planning commission. But apart from that, the workshop is tomorrow. I think our April meeting, there will be another multifamily project before you, as well as a 42 lot subdivision. So we have a lot of projects. We received another track map. I think that's like a 20 something. Yeah, 42 unit single family and 72 unit multifamily on north of Dinuba Avenue. So right now within Dinuba, we have that project. We have a proposed subdivision further down of about 300 homes. And then we received like a duplex style project that was about 130 lots or individual homes. So just on Dinuba alone, we have about 500 units in process, right? So we have a lot of things coming through, but I think the discussion tonight with regard to impacts, I think is an important item, because staff mitigates impacts through impact fees. And we have numerous projects that have been funded through the impact fee program that we can point out have generated benefit for future growth. One of those being, we have a project right now to, expand queuing on Floral Avenue for northbound traffic on Island, because there's a significant issue with not a lot of queue and through traffic being blocked by semis or people going north, right? So those impact fees play a role, not in what you see now, but maybe what you see in the future. So I thought the discussion night was a really good discussion about why we don't look at projects in a vacuum. And with that, we are updating the development impact fees as well. That is currently in process. We are looking at the project list and how far out that would go. I think we always take into account cost with those, because yes, you have to be competitive with communities and balance the needs of your community's infrastructure as part of that program. And so we'll be looking at how many projects are included to try and keep, because really what it is you have so many units, so many square feet of commercial, you have this dollar amount of impacts, and then they spread it amongst all of those items, right? And so what we'll look at is, what projects do we need within the next 5 to 10 years with relation to the, growth in the next 5 to 10 years, and try and scale it appropriately, because I think the last impact fee program included projects that wouldn't be built for 60, 80 years.
And you did mention that those are brought to their attention up front, right? So
They're
those
available,
fees-
and I think if the planning commissioners attended the development workshop we had last year, one item, it's available on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's very informative, because staff gave it. From the standpoint of, from a development standpoint, developers that do due diligence on their projects, fees are the first thing that they usually find, because that is an easy thing to identify if they know what they want to build. And then they scale back or they scale forward depending on where their fees are. So any discussion regarding what the fees are, I didn't know the fees were this, is, in my personal opinion, unfortunate because they are readily available.
So it might just have been an oversight on his, because he did say that he didn't see
It
it.
could be,
And it was all new to him, so
it
I'm
could
just,
be.
I'm just asking if they're readily available.
They're
for
readily available on the
investors to see.
website under the Finance Department page under tax and fees, along with our citywide fee schedule for all the other fees in town. And so, like I said, you know, if someone wants to know the fees, they can, we're trying to give that information up front as part of the pre-development review process so that they have an understanding of what to expect. If someone were to come and just ask us questions, and because the, you know, pre-development review process is only voluntary right now, and we're trying to make it a requirement with those fees being credited back to them, because we want them to get in early and understand what their requirements are and then tailor their project accordingly. Those fees are made available. If someone were just to call us, we would point them right to them if they asked.
Does the fact that we don't have a sewer system that accommodates the development and other cities may have it in place already, does that impact our impact fees? I mean, is that why he says ours are astronomical compared to Kingsburg?
I mean, I think it's dependent on maybe what's happened over time. With regard to improvements and the needs of infrastructure, the city is tasked with, I think, upsizing lines. Well, how do we upsize lines? Through impact fees. Or a developer goes in and does it as part of their project and we reimburse them for the oversize, one of the two. So I don't want to get too far off topic because this isn't an agendized item, but from the sheer point of view, you know, I appreciate the discussion tonight and the understanding that everybody needs to have is you can't look at these things in a vacuum. It is a broader picture than just the project that's coming before you.
Anything else? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.